Right, let's start. So yesterday we understood what is ERP, what is the purpose of ERP, and the types of modules in what SAP. We have functional modules and what technical modules. So if you are from non-programming background, we generally go for functional modules. If you are from technical background, we prefer what this ABAP. Okay, and ABAP stands for what? Advanced Business Application Programming. So in every SAP project, we'll have different types of consultants. Okay, we have different types of consultants. So for example, assume that you're working for some company Wipro. Okay, you're working for some company Wipro, and Wipro is implementing SAP for a customer called as what Tata. Okay, so for Wipro, the customer is what Tata. So on behalf of this project, what the Wipro will do is uh, Wipro is an implementation company here. We call the Wipro as what? Implementation company, and Tata is a customer for what? Wipro. So on behalf of this project, Wipro will recruit different types of consultants. Like they'll recruit what? Functional consultants, technical consultant, nothing but what? ABAP consultants, then basis consultant, nothing but we call them as administrators, and what? Obviously, every software contains what? Testers. Okay, so there are the different types of consultants working in what every SAP project, and the customer will have their own team. We call them as what? Client team, or we call it as what? End users. End users, the people who use the product, right? Okay, functional, technical, basis consultant, tester. So as an ABAP consultant, we are called as what? Technical consultant. Okay. So what is your role here? ABAP is purely what? Programming language. The programming language for SAP is what? ABAP. ABAP stands for what? Advanced Business Application Programming. So if you join a company as an ABAP consultant, what is your role in the development? Means ABAP consultant is responsible for what? Developing the objects. Whatever an ABAP consultant develop, we call them as what? Objects. Okay. That object can be in the form of report. Object can be in the form of transactions. Okay. Object can be in the form of what? Templates. Like this, we have different types of what? Objects. So as an ABAP consultant, we are involved in what? RICEF development. Okay. ABAP consultant is responsible for what? Responsible for developing what? RICEF objects. RICEF objects. Okay. Reports, interfaces, conversions, enhancements, and what? Forms. Enhancements, and then what? Forms. We can also add one more thing here called as W, nothing but workflow. So workflow is again a different thing. Workflow. Okay. So these are the different types of objects that we develop in the real time. Whether you join the company as a fresher or you're in 10 years of experience, they are the different types of objects we'll develop. So let us understand each and every object. Let us see how it is different. Okay, right. So here R stands for what? Reports. What is the general meaning of a report? Forget about the ABAP. Forget about ABAP. What is the general meaning of a report? Yes, anyone? What is the general meaning of a report? Forget about programming language, forget about ABAP. What is the general meaning of report? A report is nothing but what? It's a summary of data. Okay, summary of data. Okay, used for what? Analysis. So by looking at the report, I can make some analysis. Okay, so it's nothing but summary of data which is meaningful and it is easy for what? Analysis. So in ABAP also, as an ABAP consultant, we are responsible for developing different types of what? Reports. So it is something like this here. So you can see ABAP object development. We are involved in what? Developing what? RICEF objects, including what? Workflow. Again, workflow is a separate module, but sometimes you may also involve in what? Workflow customization. So we have different types here reports. So if you take these reports here, these reports we can classify into two types. One is classical reports Okay, classical reports, and another is what? ALV reports. Classical reports, and then what? ALV reports. These classical reports will be discussing as part of the basic ABAP, core ABAP, and ALV reports will be discussing under what? Object oriented, because ALV reports requires knowledge of what? Object oriented. Then we have interface, all those things. So first let us understand the meaning of what? Report. So it is something like this. See here. Assume that this is your ABAP program. We are going to write some ABAP program. So this is ABAP program, and this is your database. So what does a database contains? Database contains what? Tables. What is the purpose of a tables? Table is the one which can store the data permanently in the form of what? Rows and what? Columns. So in this database, we have many tables. We have one or more tables. So what I need to do now? I need to develop a report. What that report has to do? It has to send the request to what? Database. How do we send the request for database for reading the data? By using what? Select statement. So those who know SQL, Oracle SQL, PL SQL, or SQL Server, they might be aware of the select statement. So we'll write the select statement which is responsible for reading the data from what? Database tables. Whatever the data we are reading, it will return in the form of response, and that retrieved data will come and sit in something called as internal table. Okay, the ABAP program is going to create something called as internal table. So once a data is stored in the internal table, we are going to process this data, in the sense we may add a new data, or we may delete the existing data, or we may modify the data, or we may sort the data, or we may do some calculations on that particular data. Like this, we'll do what? Some sort of what? Processing on the retrieved data. Okay, that processed data, we will update it back to what? Database, or you'll display it in the form of what? Report. So this is the processed data that I am displaying it to the user in the form of a report. Report is nothing but what? Summary of what? Data. So if by looking at this report, I should able to analyze something, I should able to understand something. Okay, that is nothing but called as what? Report. What you have to understand in short is, database will contain what? Huge amount of data. I am not interested in the huge amount of data. I am interested only in some specific data. Okay, so I'll retrieve that particular data. If required, I'll do some processing on that data. Means I'll delete the unnecessary data, or modify, or I'll do a sorting, or I'll perform some calculations. After processing the data, I'll display it to the user in the form of what? Report. This is the meaning of what? Report. This is the way we develop the report in what? ABAP, whether it is classical report or ALV report. The purpose is what? Same, but the look and feel would be different for classical report and what? ALV report. So where this retrieve data will come and sit inside something called as internal table. So what is this internal table? Again, it's a separate concept. We'll see when we come to the topic. For the time being, you can understand this internal table is like result set in Java. If you know Java, in Java, we have something called as JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. We can use that JDBC API to retrieve the data from what? Database. And whatever the retrieved data is there, I can store it inside something called as result set. If you know .NET, in .NET we call it as data set. Means in each programming language, we call it with a different terminology. In .NET, we call it as a data set. In Java, we call it as result set. In ABAP, we call it as what? Internal table. Okay. So here I may retrieve the data from one table or multiple tables. It can be one table or multiple tables. I may retrieve the data. That data would be stored in the internal table temporarily. I am going to process that data and display it to the user in the form of what? Report, which contains a summarized format. Done. Now, next development that we may be involved is what? Interfaces. See, I'm not saying that every ABAP consultant will get an opportunity to develop all these things. Sometimes what happens is, even if you're having 3-4 years of experience, you may get exposure only to what? Reports. You might be never involved in developing what? Interfaces. You may not be involved in developing what? Enhancements. So I cannot say that for 2 years we require this, for 10 years we require this. Now the days are gone. Even if you're a fresher also, you are expected to involve in what? All the activities. Understood? So it is always better that we know all types of objects because all are related to what? ABAP development only. What is the next one here? Interfaces. Interface is like what? Nothing but what? A mediator. What is the general meaning of an interface? Nothing but mediator. So we have different types of interfaces, like we have RFCs, ALI, IDOCs, BAPIs. We have all these particular interfaces. Let us understand the meaning of this. See here. We are trying to understand the meaning of interfaces. Suppose assume that, try to understand this. We are having a company called as Reddy Labs. Okay, Reddy Labs, which is a pharmaceutical company. Okay, who are running their business on what? SAP system. For example, assume that we have a company by name Reddy Labs. They are running their business operations on what? SAP software. Done. Assume that this Reddy Labs has got some business partners like what? Matrix, and another partner is what? Ranbax. All these three are what? Business partners. This Matrix also running their operations on what? SAP system. So they will have their own server. Similarly, Ranbaxy, they are running their business operations on what? Non-SAP system. So when I say non-SAP system, it can be anything. It can be Java, .NET, whatever it is. Okay, non-SAP system, but all these three are what? Business partners. Business partners means they'll keep on exchanging the data between them. For example, now assume that, try to understand this scenario. I'm a customer now. I'm placing an order with Reddy Labs. Reddy Labs is what? It's a pharmaceutical company. So as a customer, an order is placed with the Reddy Labs. So assume that, try to understand, in that order, in that order, I placed an order for some 20 items, for example. Okay. So in the 20 items, 10 items are manufactured by what? 10 items are manufactured by, sorry, 10 items are manufactured by what? Reddy Labs. Okay. 6 items are manufactured by what? Ranbaxy. Okay. And another 4 items, they are manufactured by what? Another business partner, what? Matrix. Matrix. Okay. So this is the setup. So as a customer, I'm not aware of this. Okay. So customer what? Places order for how many items? 20 items. They are placing the order with whom? Reddy Labs. Okay. So in that order, there are some 20 different products. Out of these 20 different items, 10 are actually manufactured by Reddy Labs, 4 are manufactured by Matrix, and 6 are manufactured by what? Ranbaxy. I am not aware of that. Okay. All these 20 items are marketed on the name of what? Reddy Labs. That's why we are placing the order with what? Reddy Labs. So what this Reddy Labs has to do now? There are some 4 items which are actually manufactured by Matrix. Another 6 items are manufactured by Ranbaxy. So this Reddy Labs has to share that particular order details to their business partner, with their business partners. They have to share it with Matrix. They have to share it with what? Ranbaxy. So what they'll do as part of this Reddy Labs, they will generate something called as IDOC. IDOC means what? Intermediate document, which is responsible for what? Carrying the data from what? One machine to what? Another machine, which is responsible for carrying the data from one system to another system. It is like a container which can hold something. So what this IDOC is holding now? Order details. So this IDOC should be distributed to what? Two target systems. One target system is running their business on SAP. Another target system is running their business on what? Non-SAP. So if the target is SAP, I can directly send this IDOC to what? The receiver system. Okay. In the receiver system, you will have some program called as posting program, or we call it as inbound program. Okay. What is that? What is that program is going to do? It is going to read the data coming from the IDOC. It is going to read the data from incoming IDOC, and that IDOC data will be stored in their own database. Matrix will maintain their own database. Reddy Labs will maintain their own database. Ranbaxy will maintain their own database. So whatever the order data is shared with the Matrix, they will read that data and that is stored in their own database. Similarly, there are some six items which has to be shared with what? Ranbaxy. So IDOC should be distributed to what? Non-SAP system. But IDOC is what? SAP's own format. IDOC is SAP's own format. Means only SAP systems can understand the IDOC format. IDOC SAP's proprietary format is what? IDOC. So since the target system is non-SAP system, I cannot directly send the IDOC to non-SAP system. So what happened? This IDOC will be sent to some middleware, will be sent to some third-party software. We have many softwares in the market: EDI, TIPCO, Web Methods. Okay, we have some SAP's own tool like a PI or XI, something like that. We'll send that IDOC to the third-party tool. What that software is going to do? It is going to convert that what third party tool, sorry, it is going to convert that IDOC format to what? XML format. XML is what here? It's a universal accepted language. Any application, any language can understand what XML format. That's the reason they'll convert into XML format, and that XML data is sent to what? Non-SAP system. They'll read that data and store that data in their own database. So here, what you have to understand, IDOC is the interface here, which is carrying the data from between two SAP systems or between SAP and what? Non-SAP systems to generate the IDOC, to distribute the IDOC, to post the IDOC. We require a technology called as what? ALE technology. ALE technology, application link enabling. Okay, so this is nothing but meaning of what? Interface, which act as what? Mediator between what? Two machines. So this IDOC, as part of our syllabus is concerned, we are going to discuss in what? Cross applications. These RFCs, ALE, IDOCs, BAPIs, all these topics we are going to discuss as part of cross applications. Okay, this is the meaning of what? Interface. Any questions on this?
Hi, Sir Raghavendra.
Yeah, Raghavendra, tell me.
So once completion of this core ABAP classes, will I able to do my job with ad hoc or really any work?
No. Core ABAP doesn't cover IDOCs.
Mhm.
IDOCs will come under cross applications. You have the syllabus content, na?
Right. So if I get opportunity somewhere and if I get assignment on this ALE kind of thing,
Mhm.
so for that I need to complete that course mandatory.
Yes, because the cross applications contain not only IDOCs, it contains many things. It contains enhancements, RFCs. Okay, again in that enhancement we have customer exits, baddies, cross application we have RFCs, ALA IDOCs, BAPIs, customer exits, baddies, enhancement framework, and then what? LSM W. So Core ABAP doesn't cover, Core ABAP is not sufficient to work on these ALA IDOCs. Compulsory
Okay,
we need to go for cross applications.
sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other doubts, others? But all the topics are dependent in the sense directly I cannot do this cross applications topics, because when you're working with this RFCs, all those things, we require function models. Even in the ALE IDOCs also, we should have the knowledge of the internal tables, all those things. So you'll have the dependencies. So that dependencies will be covering in the basic ABAP, core ABAP. And the real scenarios will be coming under what? Object oriented ABAP and what? Cross applications. Done. What is the next thing here? Reports, interfaces. Then we have what? Conversions. Okay, so conversion means we have something called as BDCs and what? LSNW. So BDCs, according to our syllabus, we would be covering in the core ABAP, and LSNW contains different techniques. Some techniques we will be discussing in the core ABAP, and some techniques we will be discussing in what? Cross applications. So let us understand the meaning of these conversions. See here, it's very simple. Yeah, see this. So what we are discussing here, conversions. Okay. So what is this conversion means? Just to make it simple, suppose assume that we have a customer called as Reliance. Okay. This Reliance customer has started their business operations from what? 1970, for example. So from 1970 to 2016, all these 46 years, they are using some non-SAP systems. Okay, they are using some other software, or they are capture the data manually, whatever it is. So in all these 46 years, they might have captured huge amount of data. Okay, like they might have captured huge customer data, vendor data, order data, invoice data, like that. Huge amount of data they might have captured, and that data is stored in what, some text files or some Excel files. So we call them as what, legacy system. This text file or Excel file, we call it as a legacy system. Now in 2016, assume that Reliance has decided to go for what, SAP. Try to understand. Reliance has decided to go for what, SAP. Okay. So is it possible to re-enter that 46 years of data in SAP system? Not possible. They have captured the data in 46 years. It is not possible to re-enter the data in what, new software. What is the new software here? SAP. So what you will do as an ABAP consultant is, we need to develop some BDC programs. We need to develop some BDC programs. What that BDC programs will do, they will read the data from this text file or what, Excel file, and they'll migrate that data to what, the new system. What is the new system here? SAP system. Am I clear? So when do we use this BDC techniques is, we are implementing SAP to a customer for the first time. We are implementing SAP to a customer for the first time. So that customer might contain some old data. Na? That old data also is required in what, new software. So it is not possible to re-enter the data in what, new software. So what we need to do, we need to we in the sense ABAP consultant, we need to understand that particular legacy system data. Means what data is there, means is it a customer data, vendor data, sales order data, purchaser data, what is the sequence of the data, what tables we require, how many columns we require, what is the separator between the fields, whether it is comma or dot or at the rate. I need to understand the structure of that particular legacy system. Based on that, I need to write a BDC program which has to migrate the data from what, old system, legacy system, to what, the new system, which is what, SAP. This is done by using what, BDC technique. So we will be using this especially when you are implementing SAP for the first time to a customer. So just like you have purchased a mobile phone, for example, okay. So in that mobile phone, do you type the old contacts again? No, no. You will just migrate it. You will take the backup and you will do the migration from what, old SIM to what, new SIM, or old mobile phone to a new mobile phone, something like that. Understood? Same thing here also. This is called what, conversions. Conversion is, what is the meaning here? At the time of migration, we may migrate it as it is, or you might do some conversions. Like suppose here, assume that in the old system the data is stored in integer format. So what my customer will say, in the SAP system it should be stored in character format. So we'll do that kind of what, conversions during what, data migration. Clear? Any questions? Okay, stop me if you have any questions. Okay, right. What is the next one now in the RICEF? Enhancements. Enhancements. So again, if you see, as part of this enhancement, we have what, customer exits, baddies, enhancement framework. So all these topics are covered as part of what, cross applications. Okay. So what is the meaning of enhancement here? See this. Observe. So yesterday I told you that whenever a customer purchases SAP software, you'll have some predefined transactions. Na? Predefined transaction is what? Already the screens are available. Already the screens are available. Just we need to use them or we need to enhance them. So assume that in a SAP, I am having one standard transaction. Try to understand. In my SAP system, I'm having one standard transaction, standard screen. What do you mean by standard screen? Already the screen is developed by what? SAP. It is available ready-made. Okay. So in this screen, assume that we have three fields. We have three fields. And assume that we are implementing SAP for Tata. We are implementing SAP for Reliance. So according to Tata business requirement, they want to use this standard screen, but these three fields are not sufficient. SAP has given only what, three fields, but according to Tata business requirement, they want how many fields? Some five fields. Means they want some two additional fields. So what I'll do as a ABAP consultant, I am going to add the 2 additional fields on behalf of what? Tata. That is nothing but called as what? Enhancement. Means without disturbing the existing functionality, we are plugging what? Additional functionality. Similarly, we have Reliance here. We have another company which is implementing SAP Reliance. Reliance also wants to use what? Same screen. Reliance also wants to use the same screen, but the standard screen contains how many fields? 3 fields. But Reliance requires what? 6 fields. So what I'll do on behalf of Reliance, I'm going to plug, I'm going to enhance this transaction by adding what? 3 additional fields. Okay, so this process we call it as what? Enhancement. Understood? Enhancement means plugging additional functionality without disturbing what? Existing functionality. Just like you are using mobile phone. Okay, you have purchased a mobile phone 6 months back, so we'll be getting the updates. Huh? So what do you mean by updates? Without disturbing the existing functionality, we are going to plug what? Additional features. Nothing but what? Enhancements. Okay, or you'll increase your what? Internal storage memory, like something like that. Same thing here also. Any questions? Okay. Okay, done. What is the next part here? Forms. So in these forms, we will be having what? SAP scripts, smart forms, and Adobe forms. Adobe forms require separate software. Okay, it doesn't work in SAP system. We need to install some additional plugin for that. So we'll have scripts and what? Smart forms and what? Adobe forms. This will be covering as part of what? The basic ABAP. Okay. So what is the meaning of this form here? See this very simple requirement. Yeah, assume that we have a customer called as Tata. Okay, now this Tata company has got some 10 million customers. For example, 10 million customers. Okay, this Tata company has got 10 million customers. So every month, what this Tata company has to do, they has to generate the what? Bill, and they have to distribute the bill to all these 10 million customers, or telephone bill to what? All this 10 million customers. So assume that we are all Tata customers. So if we are all the Tata customers, everyone will receive the bill in the same format now. Understood? All the customers of the Tata will receive the bill in what? Same format, but the data would be different. Customer address, customer bill details, all these details will be what? Different. Okay, but the format is what? Same. Similarly, how do we understand in SAP is whenever we purchase SAP software, okay, suppose if I take this what? Reliance. Reliance has purchased SAP software. So this SAP contains what? Some predefined forms. Predefined forms. A form is nothing but what? Like a template kind of thing. Template kind of thing. To give another example, suppose I want to prepare a resume. So I should have some format for the resume. Na? So what I can do, I can open MS Word. In MS Word, you'll have some predefined templates. I can open that template and I can supply my own data. But the format, the structure, the template would be what? Same. But I'm just replacing it with what? My own data. Similarly, whenever we purchase SAP software, SAP will provide some predefined templates. I can use that forms or templates means what forms here. I can use that forms as it is, or I can use what? I can modify that particular form according to my requirement. Or assume that I require a form and that kind of form is not available in the SAP system. So SAP allows us to develop what? New forms. Means I can use the existing forms as it is. I can what? Modify the forms according to my requirement, or I can also create what? New forms. Understood? So that is nothing but called as forms here. So again, just see this. It is something like this. Assume that same example. Wipro is implementing SAP for a customer called as Tata. And just now I told Tata, assume that they have got some 10 million customers. Okay. So every month Tata has to distribute telephone bills to all their customers. No? So the format of the telephone bill will be what? Same. Everyone will receive the email. The format of the bill would be what? Same. So, but what are the template given by SAP? It contains how many windows here? Some 5 windows. One window for showing the customer address, another window for showing the company address, another window for showing what bill details, another window for showing the copyrights, another window for showing what scanned signature. These are all the 5 standard windows given by what SAP itself. But what the Tata requirement here, they want to use this template as it is, but they want to have one more window here where they can show their logo. Every company will have their own logo, na? So I need to show that particular logo here. So what I have to do, I have to take the existing template, existing form given by what SAP. I need to modify that form for accommodating what additional window, or else assume that this is my customer requirement. I don't have any kind of template in this way in SAP. So what I can do, I can develop the template from the scratch also. Okay, just to give an example, every business will contain what business documents. Business, or yesterday I told you one laptop example, na? So when you inquire of the product, you will get the quotation document, na? So quotation is also a form. Quotation is also a form. Then you'll have what purchase order is also what a form, a document. Okay, then you might have what sales order. Okay, then you may have what another document like what availability check, means stock availability check. Then you might have what invoice, that is bill. Understood? So like this, every business will have what different business documents. So to generate the template of these documents, we go for this particular scripts and what smart form. Or if you take our training institute only, if you take a training institute only, what are the business documents we deal with? We have what inquiry form. Na? Suppose if any new inquiry comes, they have to fill up what inquiry form. Then course contents. Understood? Course contents is also one business document. Understood? Like this, we'll have what different types of business documents in every business. So this is the template of our business document templates. So to design and modify these templates, we use what forms, nothing but scripts and what smart forms. All these together, we call it as what RICEF objects. So as I told you initially, you might have 0 years experience or 10 years experience and above. All of them will be involved in what these development objects. Which object we use frequently means we cannot say. It depends upon the opportunity and the experience. Project to project might be different. Sometimes whatever, as I told you, even if you're having 5 years of experience, you might have exposure only to reports. You might have never worked on what enhancement, but I cannot say that I don't know enhancement. Understood? As an ABAP consultant, you should be ready in working what any kind of these objects. Yeah, Raghavendra, any questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have been using Reliance Postpaid from past 5 years,
Mhm.
and I'm receiving the same format. So there is no change in the format of bill,
Okay, correct. Okay.
Reliance Postpaid bill. So
Mhm. Mhm.
now, as a Reliance customer
Mhm.
to the Wipro or any Tata company, so
Mhm.
where is the opportunity for me to, design a new form? If I get opportunity to design new form, is it related to enhancement? Can we say it as
No,
enhancement?
no, 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 forms. Enhancement is screen based. Enhancement is screen based. Forms means physical documents, paper documents. Telephone bill you are talking now, prepaid mobile bill. It's a
Yes,
document, right?
yes,
It's a document. You
yes,
are not going to enter any data in the online. Okay, that online
yes.
screens that comes under enhancement. Suppose you have to withdraw amount from ATM. So you have to go through the number of screens. Na? Each screen will have their own field. So that comes under what enhancements. Okay, forms is what it's a paper document, physical document. It comes under forms. So
Okay.
as you told from last 5 years, you are receiving the template in what same format. Now what Reliance will do, because of the competition, they want to change the format of the bill. They want to make it colorful. Am I clear? So they want to have in that bill only, they want to add one section where they can show some quotations. So what I need to do in that form, I need to accommodate one additional window to show that particular quotation. So that comes under form, where the user is going to enter the data online. That comes under what transactions. That is nothing but enhancements. So enhancement
Okay.
is different, forms is different. Form is a physical document. Yeah. Any other questions on this? Done. So far we understood what is the role of ABAP consultant development wise. Development wise. Okay. So now again, this is also very important. As an ABAP consultant, every time we are not involved only in the development. There is something called as before development and after development. Means in the entry point of view, if you are a fresher, fine, no problem. But assume that you are projecting some experience in ABAP. So they'll ask you, what is your role in the project? And your everyone will put fake experience. It's a general thing. There's nothing to hide here. Everyone will not get the jobs through campus placements. Only 10% of people will be hired throughout campus, but 90% either you or me, some point of our career, we have to put the fake experience. We have to project that we are already having a real-time experience. Okay, so when you're projecting some experience, okay, in that experience they'll ask you what was your role in the project. What most of the ABAP consultant will do is they'll try to say that I developed this report, I have enhanced this transaction, understood, I have done this conversions, I developed this interface. So my suggestion is we should not talk about this development activity. Okay, remember, if you talk only about the development activity, it means that you don't have the real experience. So in the interview point of view, don't don't tell about development much. Okay, what is your role means you should able to explain what you have done before development, what you have done after development. If you tell those things only, it is understood that we are having the real experience. So what is the role of ABAP consultant in the entire SAP project is, it is something like this. One second please, let me open the document. Already it is there. Just hold on please, I'll open the document. Yeah, see this. This is the role of ABAP consultants in what? SAP projects. What is that? These 8 to 9 steps. Understanding and analyzing what? Functional specs, preparing technical specs, preparing UTP, development, code review and unit testing, transport management, support and what? End user training. So let us understand these steps one by one. This is very important interview point of view. What is your role in the project means don't directly start with this development activity. Apart from development, what are the non-development activities you have involved? We should be able to explain that. So it is something like this. First step is what? Understanding and analyzing what? Functional specs. So before that, what exactly is the meaning of this functional specs? We understood initially that in every SAP project, you will have different types of consultants, functional consultants, technical consultant, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So initially what happens is, if you are implementing SAP for the first time to a customer, functional consultants will interact with what? Customers. Excuse me, please. Functional consultants will interact with the customer. Who are called as functional consultants? Who are from non-ABAP background. I might be from SAP SD, SAP FICO, whatever it is, SAP HR, whatever it is. So depending on my domain knowledge and the module, I'll be interacting with the customer. So what is my job initially as a functional consultant? I need to understand my customer requirement. Who is the customer here? Assume that Reliance is a customer and you are working for Wipro. So on behalf of Wipro, you'll talk with the customer. Okay, that is Reliance. They will talk with a team of what? Reliance. So what Reliance will do? They'll explain about their business. They'll explain about their products. They'll explain about the type of business. They'll explain in which countries they're having the business. So they'll explain all the policies of their what business. So what you have to do as a functional consultant, we need to understand the CR. We need to collect what? As we in the sense what here? Functional consultant. We need to collect the business requirements from the customer. Based on that requirements, I need to prepare some documents. There are many documents, but I'm talking directly about the functional specs. You'll prepare a document called as what? Functional specs. In some projects, we call it as functional specs. In some projects, we call it as functional design. In some projects, we call it as project purchase request. Understood? So the purpose is same, but the terminology would be what different. Okay, so what the functional consultant will do, he will interact with the customer. Interacting means they'll attend the workshops. That workshops may go for days of time, months of time. Am I clear? So after attending those meetings, after attending those workshops, functional consultant should understand the customer requirement. Functional consultant already knows how SAP will work, but they should know what is the customer requirement. So based on that understanding, they'll prepare some documents. One of the important document is what? Functional specs. So what this functional specs contains, it contains the business requirements of the customer. Okay, so assume that I'm a, try to understand, I'm a SAP FICO consultant, for example. So what I'll do, I'll understand my customer requirement, and according to my understanding, I understood that we require a report. The customer is asking for a report. Customer is asking for a report which has to show so and so data. Okay, this is the analysis done by functional consultant. It can be FICO, SD, HR, whatever it is. But the functional consultant doesn't know how to develop this report, where to write this report, because he is from what? Non-ABAP background. But he knows that they want a report something like this. So what happens now? Functional consultant, they will give this functional specs to what? Technical team. I'm interested to the ABAP consultant. So what you will do as a ABAP consultant, we will not directly develop the objects. Before we develop the objects, what we are going to do, we are going to prepare. We are going to what? Understand and analyze what? Functional specs. Understood? We need to understand and analyze the function. Who has created this functional specs? By functional consultant. So just by reading the functional specs, you will not understand. You need to analyze it properly. If you have any if you require any clarifications in that, you need to prepare something called as the issue log. That issue log you have to send it to what? Functional consultant. He will go through that issue log and he will clear your queries. Am I clear? I repeat once again, this is important. Just by reading the functional specs, we will not understand anything. You or me will not understand anything. We need to keep on reading it for many times. After that, you will get some inputs, but still you will have some questions on that. So you need to sit with the functional consultant, or if the functional consultant is not available in your team, in your place, you need to prepare a issue log. You need to prepare a issue log and send that issue log to the functional team. They'll provide the clarifications on each query. We need to again read that clarification. If you're satisfied, fine. Otherwise, again you have to resend that particular issue log. Like that, the chain will continue. Like that, the chain will continue till the functional specs is what? Understood. So assume that I understood the functional specs. Now I'll prepare what? Technical specs. I, in the sense what? ABAP consultant will prepare what? Technical specs. We can call it as technical specs, or we call it as what? Technical design. It can be anything. Technical specs or what? Technical design. What does it contain? It contains what? Technical information. Technical specs contains what? Technical information. Okay, functional specs contains what? Business requirements. Okay, they'll not talk about any technical information. Understood? So we have to prepare the technical specs contains technical information. What do you mean by technical information? It can be in the form of what? Algorithms, flowcharts, ER diagrams, that is entity relationship diagrams, UML diagrams, unified modeling language diagram, and objects information. So I'm not saying that every technical specs will contain all these things, but a technical specs may contain these things. Sometimes what happens in some projects, our technical specs may not have this diagram, flowcharts, all those things. Directly you may have the algorithm and the objects information. But whatever I'm discussing is a generalized thing. Okay, keeping the knowledge of what multiple projects I worked, I've consolidated this one. So a technical specs may contain all these things, or it may contain only few of these things. So what is the first one? Algorithm. What is that algorithm? Step by step description of the logic. In the sense, what is my requirement now? I need to develop a report now. So to develop that report, I should have some analysis on that now. Means what input I have to give, what is the calculation I have to do, what is the expected output. That is nothing but what? Algorithm. Like suppose assume that I want to develop a report which has to perform the sum of two numbers, for example. So what I'll do, I'll develop an algorithm for that. Step one, declare two variables of type integer. Step 2, assign input values to the integer variables x and y. Step 3, perform the sum of x and y and store the result in what? Variable z. Step 4, display the value of the variable z. So I'm describing my logic. I'm not writing the logic here. I'm describing the logic. That is nothing but called as what? Algorithm. Pseudo code. We call it as what? Pseudo code. Okay. Then you might be what? Designing the flow charts, entity relationship diagrams, UML diagrams. So this will come in our academics, how to design the flow chart. Even if you don't know that, you can just Google and go through all these things. Okay. And the most important thing is what? Objects information. Objects information. So just before this, we discussed na, object can be in the form of report, object can be in the form of interface, object can be in the form of enhancement. So we need to provide that particular object information. All this together, we call it as what? Technical specs. So after preparing the technical specs, what you have to do? We have to submit this technical specs to your reporting manager, to your supervisor, team lead, project lead, whatever is the hierarchy, you'll submit to them. What they are going to do? They are going to review your technical specs. They are going to review your technical specs. If any issues are there, they'll address that issues in the issue log. We need to what? We need to what? Rectify that particular issues, update the issue log. Again, you have to send it back to what? Your reporting manager. Again, you will review it. Like that, it might be reviewed by what? Multiple people. So once everyone is happy, they will give the sign off. They'll give sign off. Sign off means what? Ready for the next phase. Ready for the next phase. So assume that the technical specs is signed off. What is the next phase here? Preparing what? UTP. Nothing but what? Unit test plan. Okay, so before I go to that, any questions in this too, please ask me.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, is there any chance to follow agile methodology?
Yeah, again now, see, it is depends on the project requirements. Customer is more bothered about the result. Customer is not bothered about these documents. So what happens is you'll go for what? Agile process. Agile process means what? You will not prepare this document directly. You'll do the development. Try to understand. Directly we'll do the development. Okay, we'll get some result. We'll show it to the customer. Customer is happy with that. So once the object is working fine, later on you'll prepare what? Document. So some projects may follow agile process, some projects may follow this process. So we cannot say exactly, but yes, there are many customers who prefers what? Agile process. Nowadays most of them are going for agile process, but even in the agile process also, somewhere at the end also, at the end we need to prepare these documents. So it is required. Agile
Okay.
methodology, we call it as. Yeah.
So the time is not sufficient to prepare some technical specification,
Correct.
which is given by our supervisor. So how to extend the timelines?
See, how to extend that
Is there any
timeline means, see, it depends on our skill set, Raghavendra. In the sense, see,
Okay.
your supervisor will come to you. Just generally, I'll tell you what happens in the project now. Supervisor will get that from what? Some other functional consultant, someone. Okay. So what they will do, supervisors, they will not do the development. They'll throw it on the team member. So they'll come to you and they'll say that I want this report in what? 2 days. You will say like that. Just in a vague sentence, you'll say that I want that report in 2 days. Whatever our supervisor asks may not be correct, okay, and may not be justifiable also. So what you have to do, we should never accept the timelines. Understood? Supervisor will tell that he wants this report in 2 days. Doesn't mean that you have to abide by the 2 days. Okay. I need to go through that requirement. I need to go through that complexity. I need to check, do we have any dependencies for that? Understood? Means until and unless one object is developed, I cannot proceed with this development. You'll have some dependencies or you'll have some complexity in that. Suppose assume that that report has to develop using what? Object oriented. So most of the people, they not be aware of object oriented. So you have to tell your supervisor saying that this 2 days is not sufficient because this has got dependencies. I need to go through this particular tables. Understood? I need to eat these tables. I need to check this performance issues. So we need to convince your supervisor. Understood? He will say whatever he wants, but we should be in a position to explain him why we require more time. So how do we tell them? By checking these dependencies, complexity, all those things. Am I clear, Raghavendra?
Sure, sir. Yeah, thank you.
So always know in the project, this is important. Supervisors will try to throw everything on what? Team members. Project managers will try to throw everything on what? Supervisors. Everyone will be in what? They'll play safe game. Okay, that's why in the when you're working in a project, we should also play this politics kind of thing. Okay, whenever you're doing anything, everything you have to put it in the mail saying that I'm involved in so and so, and this is the accepted time period for this particular object. Okay, assume that you are accepted for 2 days. Okay, for example, so during the development process, you came to know that it has got some dependent. Initially, I don't know that. I cannot know also. But during development, I came to know that it has got some dependencies, and those dependencies are not yet developed. So again, we need to pitch in and we have to put it in the mail saying that yes, this object requires so and so thing. It has got some dependencies. Until unless this is developed, I cannot proceed further. So we need to convince everyone. So this is the safe game we have to play.
Yeah, got
Is
it,
it
sir.
clear
Thank
to
you.
everyone? Yeah. Any other questions, others? I know this is little kind of boring, but before we start the programming part, this is most important. Okay, right. So assume that the technical specs is signed off. Once it is signed off, what is the next phase you might be involved? Preparing what? UTP. UTP stands for what? Unit test plan. So what is UTP exactly? UTP contains test cases. Test cases means, suppose assume that I'm an ABAP consultant working in a project. I have been assigned to develop an object which has to perform the sum of two numbers. Okay, I have been assigned to develop a report object which needs to perform the sum of two numbers. Okay, so I should have some analysis in the sense, after developing my object, I need to test this object with so and so input value so that I'll get so and so output. Means the input, the expected output, all these things you need to what? You should have some test cases, test scenarios. So what you'll do, almost for every object, we are going to develop what? Test cases. Something like this here. See here. This is how you develop the test case. I'm just giving a simple template. This is a template for one of the simple objects, sum of two numbers. So what is the test case one? If I give the input 1 20 and input 2 as 20, what is the expected output? 30. Actual output, you will not fill it. You will keep it blank because I have not yet developed the code here. It is only my understanding that after developing the code, I need to test my object with this particular test cases. So with my understanding of the business, I'll prepare the test cases. Second case, 10 and minus 20 if I give, what is the expected output? Minus 10. Like this, according to my understanding of the requirement, I'll prepare my own test cases. For every object, I'll prepare n number of test cases and I'll keep this test cases ready. Again, this test case also, we have to send it to our supervisor reporting manager for sign off. Means he will just go through that. He may give some input saying that you add one more test case. Like that, it keeps on what? Modifying. Means whatever I write, it might may not be correct, or whatever your supervisor tells may not be correct. Everything has got what? Advantage and disadvantage. So we need to make sure that almost all the test cases are covered in the UTP, and you'll keep these two columns blank. Why? Because I have not yet developed the code. So assume that I developed the UTP and I submitted and it got signed off. Signed off means what? Ready for what? Next phase. Ready for next phase. What is the next thing here? Development. Here we are going to do the development. So before development, what was your role? We were responsible for understanding, analyzing the functional specs, preparing the technical specs, preparing the UTP. Once all these documents are signed up, we are involved in what? Development phase. So if you take any SAP project, you'll have some landscape for the project. Like you'll have what? Development client, quality client, and what? Production client. It is something like this here. I think the slide is already there. Let me open. Yeah. So see here, try to understand this. You'll have what? Development client, you'll have quality client, and you'll have what? Production client. Okay. So as an ABAP consultant, you'll be developing the objects in what? Development client. Always you'll be developing the objects in what? Development client. So assume that I am developing one object here, object V1, for example. I am done with my development. So after development is completed, we need to test our object with our own test cases. So don't think that testing is always done by tester. Before the tester does the testing, as a developer, as an ABAP consultant, we should also test our object with our own test cases. So earlier I prepared these test cases. Now I have finished developing my object. Okay, I finished developing an object. I'll test my what object with all the test cases. When I'm testing, I'll get some result. I'll document this particular result. Okay, I'll say 30 means this will act as a proof, and even the attachment also. What are the inputs you are giving? What is the output I got? Everything we need to attach here. So at the end, what you have to ensure, the expected output and actual output of all the test scenarios should be what? Same. Then only I can say that my object is working fine. Am I clear? I developed the object, and we should have some proof kind of thing to tell that my object is working fine. For that reason, we are going to test this particular object. Where you are going to test? Wherever you have developed it. Where we developed it? In the development client. So assume that the development is done. I have tested my object. All of them are working fine. If it is not working, I need to do the necessary changes. I am happy with the object. Once the object is what working fine, what we need to do? We are involved in the next phase. This is also important. See here, code review and what? Unit testing. So unit testing, just now I told. What is this unit testing? The person who has developed the object, the same person has to test his object based on his own test cases. That is nothing but called as what? Unit testing. Where do we do this unit testing? In the development system only. And we are going to do what? Code review. What we are going to do in the code review? See this. I think I documented here. Yes, you can see. So unit testing means what? Unit testing is nothing but what? Test the objects with all the test cases and ensure actual output matches with what? Expected output. That is nothing but called as what? Unit testing. Then what is that? Code review. Code review means I need to check for coding standards. In every project, you'll have some coding standards, especially when you're working in big MNCs, you'll have some coding standards manual. So before we start the development, we need to go through that manual, and we need to what? Follow that particular coding standards while developing the objects. Means coding standards means, suppose assume that in some projects, for example, I'm telling, in some projects the variable names should start with what? V underscore. In some projects, the variable name should start with GV underscore. In some projects, internal table name should start with T underscore. In some project, we may start with what? GT underscores. Okay. So they'll formulate some coding standards. We need to stick to that particular coding standards. So we need to check for what? Those standards, and also we have to check for performance issue. Performance issue means, see here, I developed this report here. I developed the object in the development client. I'm testing my object. So to give me the result, it has taken some 20 milliseconds of time. It has taken 20 milliseconds of time. So what I need to do? I need to check whether I can write the same code in a better way, so that it will take what? Less amount of time. Am I clear? Same logic I can write it in what? 100 different ways. So here getting the output is important, as well as the performance is also what? Important. So we need to check for what? Those performance issues. Am I clear? Means it is taking lots of time to give me the results. So I need to think whether I can write that code in a better way, so that the performance is what? Addressed. That is nothing but you will do it in what? Code review phase. Code review. Okay, done. So assume that everything is working fine. We are happy with the object. So where we have developed this object? In the development system now. So we are going to transport. We are going to move this object from the development client to what? Quality client. Who will have access to the quality client? Testers, and sometimes access might be given to some functional consultant also to assist the testers. Okay, so what the tester will do here? Tester also will prepare his own test cases. These test cases we have prepared according to our understanding. Similarly, tester also will prepare his own test cases according to his own understanding of what business requirement. So that whenever the object comes from development client to what quality client, what the tester will do, he has to test the object with his own test cases. Am I clear to everyone? Initially, we have developed the object, we have tested, we are happy with that. But someone else has to tell me whether the object is working fine or not. So the object is transported from development to quality. Once the object arrives in the quality system, tester is going to test the object. Assume that for this particular object, he has prepared some 20 test cases. For example, out of 20 test cases, out of 20 test cases, only 15 are working, other 5 test cases are not working. So what the tester has to do now, he has to report this problem to the development team now. Understood? He has to intimate these issues to the development team. So how this intimation will be done? If it is a small company, yes, the intimation might be done either through a person or by mail or whatever it is. But if you take the big MNCs, generally they'll maintain some incident tracking tools. You'll have some softwares called as incident tracking tools. There are many what tools available in the market. Some of them I know is Remedy tool, Mercury Quality Center, HP Quality Center, like that. We have different tools. So what the tester is going to do, he is going to write that problem to that particular tool. Means this software, this tool will look something like this: ticket number, priority, status, assigned to issue. I just documented some important columns. We may have other columns also. Okay, so whenever a problem is written to this tool, a ticket number will be what generated, like a complaint number. Whenever we give any complaint to the customer, you will have that acknowledgement number, complaint number. Similarly, here we call it as what, incident number, ticket number, fault number, whatever it is. And the priority, what is the priority of that issue, whether it is a medium priority, urgent, low, high. Again, each priority will have their own what timelines. Suppose in some projects, assume that if it is urgent priority, I need to fix it in 2 hours. If it is high priority, I need to fix it in 4 hours. If it is a medium priority, in 1 day, low priority in 2 days, something like that. Project to project, you may have different timelines. So you will write the priority also. Status, initial status is always new. Assigned to means what, to which user the issue has been assigned. Who will have access to this development client? ABAP consultant. Every ABAP consultant will have their own user IDs and password. So assume that these are the user IDs. ABC is one user, PQR is another user, XYZ is one user, like that. These are all the development team credentials. So assume that my user ID is what, PQR. It is assigned to my user only. Okay. Then issue means what? You will attach the screenshot also here. You'll provide the attachment here for showing you the problem. Okay. So these 5 columns, what I can say is they are filled by whom? Tester only. You will write that issues to this particular tool. So what you will do as an ABAP consultant, after transporting the object, you will not sit idle. You will not sit idle. On a periodic basis, every 1 hour, 2 hours, we need to log on to this particular tool and we need to check whether any issues are raised against your name. Against your name. Assume that my user ID is PQR. So against to my name, how many issues are raised here? 4 issues are raised. So what I need to do now? I need to fix that issues depending on the priority. What is the topmost priority? Urgent. Na? So I'll start fixing the urgent priority. So what I'll do now, before I start fixing, I will look at the problem. I'll check whether it is my problem or whether the tester is not tested properly, or the functional consultant has not given the requirement properly, or the customer itself has not given the requirement properly, or sufficient data is not there for testing. I'll look at the problem, then I'll start fixing that. I'll start fixing that. The moment I start fixing that, I need to change the status to what? Open. Initially, when the tester has written the issue, the status is what? New. When I started working on that issue, I need to change the status to what? Open. Means if someone looks at this status, they'll understand that someone is addressing this issue. Am I clear? So I need to change the status manually to what? From new to open. Done. So I have modified my code. For example, where do we do the changes? In the development system only. So I have modified that existing code. Again, I have transported. Understood? So when I transport, I'll change the status to what? Fixed. Am I clear? I'll change the status to what? Fixed. So when I transport, I need to write the delivery date, on which date you have fixed that issue. What is the transport number? There is something called as change request number, or we call it as transport request number. I need to write that number here, and I need to write the reason for the issue. What is the reason? Can be, it can be a technical issue. Technical issue means what? Whose fault it is? Our fault only, na? We have not written the logic properly. Or it can be functional issue, means the functional consultant has not given the requirement properly, or it is a new business requirement, or it is a testing issue, or it is a data issue. So we need to write the appropriate reason why the issue is raised. Means simply blindly I cannot write what? Functional issue. If I write it as functional issue, functional concept will come to you, you will say that why you wrote it as functional issue, where is the issue? So we need to justify that. If you said testing issue, tester will come to you and say that what is the problem. So we need to be able to justify that. Okay, right. So you have retransported that object to what? Quality system. What the tester, now version 2 will be generated for the same object. Version 2 is generated. What the tester will do now? Again he will test it. Okay, if again there are issues, again he will change the status from what? Fix it to reopen. Fix it to reopen, or assume that he is satisfied with that, everything is working fine, he is also happy, so he will change the status to what? Closed. Am I clear? Okay, so assume that all the test cases are working, a tester is happy with that object. Again, this object is transported from quality to what? Production. Actually, who will do this transportation? Not by ABAP consultant tester. It is done by the administrator. We are no way concerned. Our job is only to release the task, release the request. There is something called as task and release, task and request. We'll see that when we start the practical session. We are only responsible for releasing the task and what? Releasing the request. Actual transportation will be done by whom? By the basis consultant, that is the administrator. So assume that he has transported. So all the objects will come to a production client. Who will have access to this production client? The team, the end user. Client will have the access to what? Production client. They'll start running the business in live. Production system is the one where the actual business is run. Okay, live business. So while running the business also, I may get some issues now. So what the customer will do, what the client team will do, they will also report the problem to what? The same tool, or it can be different tool. So again, what you have to do, you have to monitor that tool, check whether any issues are reported against your name. We need to fix that issues depending on the priority. After fixing, you need to update the tool accordingly. This process we call it as what? Support. Support means what? There might be some issues raised in what? Testing phase or in the live phase, that is in the production phase. We need to monitor that issues and fix that issues depending on the priority. Okay, this process is called as what? Support. Okay, that's what I documented here. See this? Transport management. What you are going to do in transport management, there is something called an extended program check that we will not understand for the time being, ignore it. We are going to release the task, release the request, and send the screenshot to the consent. They will do the transportation. Now next step is what? Support. Support means what? Fixing the issues raised in what? Quality or what? Production phase, and updating the tools accordingly. Tools means what here? This can be any software. So I know these tools like Mercury Quality Center, HP Quality Center, Remedy tool, like that. You may have n number of tools available in the market for holding that ticket information. This entire process we call it as what? Support. Okay, so this is the role of what? ABAP consultant in what? Projects. Sometimes if you are an experienced techno-functional consultant, you might be involved in this part also, but this is a very rare case. End user training. End user training means you develop that report. You know how that report works. You know what input you have to give. You know how to give the input, means you know how to use that product. So we need to train the end user on how to use that particular product. So again, for how do you do it? You'll prepare the manual. Suppose when you purchase any product, you will get the user manual also. No? It will contain all the recommendations. They'll tell you the process how to use that. Okay, and we need to train the end user on how to use that particular finished. So this is very rarely we'll get the requirement, but Again, it depends on your opportunity and what experience. Sometimes you might be involved in what end user training also to explain him how to use that particular finished product. That's all. This is the role of what ABAP consultant. So we should talk more about what before development, and after development. Then only it is understood that we are having what genuine experience. So an entry point of view also, just explain this thing, what is your role means. This is more than sufficient. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. So again, I'll stop for today. Next session will be again on what Monday. As I told you initially, classes will be from Monday to Friday. We'll meet again on Monday morning around 10 o'clock. I believe I have shared that yesterday's material and recording to everyone. Hope everyone has received it. Okay, so next class will be again on what Monday, and Monday we'll get into what ABAP part. So far we understood only the theoretical thing. What is SAP, what is ERP, what is the role of what ABAP consultant. From Monday onwards, we'll start with what programming, where to develop the programs, how to develop. So we'll focus on the programming part from the Monday onwards. So any questions you can ask me, otherwise I'll wind off for today.